What's your sort of stance on Andy Murray?
I personally can't see him ever challenging for a Grand Slam or reaching the top 10 again, just because of the level that's at the top at the moment.
Hey everyone, my name is Danilo Petrovic.
I'm Ilya Marchenko.
I'm Denis Kudla.
I'm Evgeny Donskoy.
I'm Henry Laaksonen.
I'm Peter Torebko, and you're listening to the Game to Love podcast.
So, welcome back to the Game to Love podcast, and today we have a special guest, Dan Rodenby from Tennis Work, is it?
Yes, Tennis Brainwork, yeah, we blogged him.
So how are you doing today?
Yeah, all right. Still stuck in lockdown, obviously, but can't wait to get the Australian Open going. Obviously, it's not the most exciting weekends, especially. So to have a Grand Slam tennis event is brilliant to have it on, I think. Obviously, having had the best preparation with the players in lockdown and that situation going on, but just have a Grand Slam tennis event, I don't think we can complain, and hopefully we get a quality 2 weeks of tennis.
Yeah, so before we get on to the actual tennis, let's actually find out a bit about you. So for those who don't know, you're a blogger, tennis blogger, big tennis fan, Djokovic fan. You love women's tennis as well, British tennis. You're big on that.
Yeah.
You do. I've read some of your blogs. I think they're very good, very concise. You do a very good job on that, and also you've got a YouTube channel as well. So if you guys want to listen to that and you want to watch that, please do, and just let them know what your channel name is so they can go over and subscribe.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I've always liked tennis. My mum's a big tennis fan. Started off like probably most British tennis fans, just watching Wimbledon as a kid on BBC. Just went from there. I went to university and doing sports journalism. Always been a massive fan of loads of different sports: football, tennis, boxing, cricket. But at university, I decided that tennis was the sport that I wanted to really work in, and I wanted to try and help improve British tennis and give our low-ranked players more exposure. And started off with a tennis blog, just writing articles, tournament previews, stuff like that. Started up my tennis Twitter account. Yeah. Then the more and more tennis I've watched and listened to and followed, I've liked the idea of doing commentary and analysis stuff like that, presenting. So I thought the best way of improving those sort of skills was probably to set up a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So I've done that last January, actually, just before the Australian Open. Just do tournament previews, men's and women's events. I've interviewed 12 or 13 British tennis players, just talking about their careers, future aspirations, how they got into the sport. And just going from there, looking to this year, I'm hoping to get to a couple of events, hopefully Wimbledon and Nottingham, working as some sort of media assistant, just doing some experience. Just keep up with the YouTube channel, interviewing more and more British tennis players, reviewing and previewing more tournaments, stuff like that. So just keeping busy and hoping some opportunities come up very soon, really.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. It sounds great. And you are definitely the man to talk to about British tennis. Obviously, me and Ben, we try and cover it as much as we can. We're very happy with obviously Francesca Jones qualifying for the Australian Open. That's massive news, and we're going to be cheering her on the whole way. On the men's side right now, we're going to be having the ATP Cup happening. And Team GB, they're not there this year, which is a bit annoying, I think.
Disappointing,
because we do have the talent. I know you're very in favour of the talent we have on the GB side. Me and Ben are a bit negative at times. Yeah. Andy Murray's been carrying the flag for so long. Who is next in line to carry it for us?
Jack Draper was definitely the first one to look to. We know he reached that junior Wimbledon final. I think Ryan Peniston is a player that will climb the rankings pretty quickly. He's got a great story. He had cancer at a very young age, 2 or 3 year old, I think he was. And Ryan went to US college tennis, won loads and loads of titles at Memphis University.
Okay.
Turned pro in, I think it was 2018, and actually had some very good results last year and this year. But obviously, last year in 2019, sorry. But
similar to Norrie then. I think Norrie went to the college tennis setup as well.
Yeah, there's a few British tennis players gone over there now, and I think they're turning pro 22 or 23, but US college tennis sounds to me like a very good route. It's very competitive, great coaching, and I think Peniston will climb the rankings pretty quick. I mean, if you look back last year at the Battle of the Brits event, he took Norrie and Edmund to match-aside and tie breaks, and they're both obviously in the top 100. So I think Peniston's a player that will probably climb the rankings pretty quick. But I think Jack Draper is probably the one to keep an eye on.
I think Jack Draper's the one we've watched probably the most of. He's played on the Challenger circuit a few times, playing against some players we follow quite regularly. And he's such a big guy, isn't he? So big. He's 19 years old. I forget the exact height, but he's well over 6 foot. He's got a strong serve, brilliant, very overall game. He's very strong as well. And he's certainly one to look out for.
Yeah, Draper's a very exciting young player, in my opinion. I like Jay Clark as well, another big server, powerful forehand, good at the net. And I think there's a few men coming along. I think, players like Peniston, I think they'll probably reach the peak a little bit later on, having turned pro a little bit later. I think Peniston was 23 when he turned pro. But I think a couple of good years for Peniston and lots of tennis, hopefully, and he'll climb the top 100, I think, in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and with obviously the women's, Francesca Jones, what a story that is. I'll be honest, I didn't know too much about her really before this tournament. I've always known she's on the fringes. She pulls off some good results here and there, but a bit inconsistent. But to qualify for a Grand Slam tournament is just phenomenal. And she's really been brought onto sort of the mainstream media now, which is great. Even on GTL now, we've got a lot of people in our comment section always talking about her, cheering her on. And me and Ben are really interested to see how far she can go, because we generally think she's the way she was playing in the qualifiers, she can beat a lot of players and maybe cause a few upsets this year. Yeah,
I think, it's a fantastic story, not just her reaching the Australian Open, but if you read about the condition that she has got, she's obviously bang up against it. But she's talked about it. I interviewed her a couple of years back, and my blog sort of went mad the other day when she qualified for the Australian Open, and I quickly realised why when I pressed on, the amount of views that interview had got. But she sort of uses that condition as a positive. She's got real mental strength. She fights for life on court. It's just a fantastic story, and who knows how far it can go, really.
Well, it's all the coaches and stuff. I was reading a story about how they was told when she was younger, maybe like 6, 7, 8, that she would never be able to play tennis. And it's sort of that she sort of used that as the fuel to sort of fight on, because her mental side of her game is right up there. And that maybe has been the biggest weakness of British tennis over the last few years, if you're honest. Like, there's a lot of times, I think the media can be very harsh on British tennis players, but a lot of the time they're always criticising their mental side. Do they have that extra edge to be able to get there over the line and win tournaments? Andy Murray's shown that he's been able to do it. Aside from that, there's been a lot of others who just they've been good enough, but they've not been able to get it over the line. With her, she seems to have that, and I think if she's in a position where she's down under and really under it, I think she can find another gear.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I mean, she came through a couple of close sets in that Australian Open qualification. Well, she's going to be a wild card for that event, so she might get a draw against the likes of Simona Halep, Naomi Osaka, but it'll just be a fantastic occasion for her to go out and probably one of the main courts at the Australian Open. And who knows, with the fighting heart that she's got, she's going to be under no pressure.
I don't think there's too much pressure either in terms of at the end of the day, her getting there is an amazing achievement in itself. Let's see where she can get from this and build on it. Because I think she's going to learn a lot from the experience. She's not got exactly a normal Grand Slam experience, especially if she's been one of the ones locked in the hotel room for the last 14 days. But if she can do it this year and have a good run, I'm sure next year, when it's a bit more normal, she'll storm it.
Yeah, she's only 20-year-old as well.
20 years old,
Just talking on British tennis, I think the probably go-to person, if you're going to say somebody's going to carry the flag for British tennis in the future, I think Emma Raducanu is definitely the player you look to. I mean, when she was 15, I remember her going on something like a 24-match winning streak at the Futures events, and she's picked up lots of titles, done fantastically well in the UK events last year. Obviously, that famous lob against Andy Murray at the Battle of the Brits. And she's just a fantastic young teenager player. Got a very strong serve, brilliant returner, backhand, forehand. She just seems to have all the tools to go very far in the women's game.
Do you know where she's ranked right now in the women in the rankings?
I think she's around 400, but she's only I think 18. I think she just turned 18 a couple of months back.
So plenty of time to progress, and like you said, she's already shown glimpses of what she can do.
Yeah, certainly. And Jodie Burrage as well. She played. Well, she had 3 ankle surgeries, I think, by the time she was something like 15, 16. So she missed a lot of junior tennis. So she's sort of playing catch up. But again, she's only 21, I think, and obviously played a lot of matches at the Battle of the Brits event, which was good for her form and fitness. She just travelled well last year at the back end and got a few big wins. And she's, again, another player. If she stays fit, she's got a very solid game. I think she can be top 100 probably in the next 2 or 3 years as well. So I think the women's side of British tennis is probably looking better than the men's. Kate Porter, again, a young player that's coming through. So, yeah, I think British women's tennis is on the rise, and I think we'll see a few good results for them in the next couple of years.
Oh, brilliant. I hope so as well. And moving away from the British side of things, obviously we touched on the qualifiers for the Australian Open. Did you get to watch many of them matches?
I watched Francesca's. I watched 2 of hers, but I don't think they were all streamed. But I didn't see loads of them, to be honest.
Yeah, it was difficult to see because we did a podcast talking about some of the qualifiers to watch out for. The big one for us is Alcaraz. We think he is so deadly and dangerous, and what a talent he is at such a young age. We'd love to see how far he can go. We have Laxinen. We spoke to Laxinen the other night. He's quarantined in the hotel right now. And also Thomas Machak, another young player, is qualified now for a Grand Slam back-to-back. Obviously qualifying for the French Open as well. These guys, it's very unfortunate the fact that they're locked in their hotel room right now. So all of the qualifiers, I think there's 72 players in total who are under the harshest conditions down in Australia right now, in their hotel rooms without really any access to anyone. They're just secluded. They're not able to do their usual training. Is it really going to have a big impact on these players, you think? As aside to some of the other players who have a bit more luxury to be able to train 5 hours a day or have access to courts and hitting and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it will, definitely. I mean, it's just mentally as well. You know, the likes of Serena and Djokovic and Nadal, they know how to handle these sort of experiences, I guess. I think young players can get frustrated by it, and I do think it'll play, probably a big impact. I think, especially in the first couple of rounds where they might be a little bit rusty in the that practice that you mentioned. If they can get through to, the second, third round, you'd expect them to start warming up and finding the feet on court. But the opening couple of rounds, we could see, muscle injuries coming into factor, and some shock results as well. There's a lot of top players as well have been under the strictest conditions, like you mentioned. And
one name I want to bring up straight off the bat is actually Andreescu on the women's side. I believe she's in some of the strictest conditions, and she's someone who me and Ben we absolutely love her. We generally after Serena Williams, we thought she was like, especially in that US Open final where she beat Serena, we sort of felt the changing of the guard a little bit in terms of she has all the skills and the skill set to be able to dominate women's tennis. Since then, there's been a lot of other names sort of in and around. Most notably recently, Sabalenka. She just looks incredible. But for me, this Andreescu girl, she was the one to beat for a really unfortunate injury. It's a shame because Australian Open, I think she could have done really well this year. Can she still do it?
Well, I'm with you. I thought Andreescu, it was a change in the guard. The way she performed against Serena at the US Open final was probably underrated at the time, with the fans, especially cheering on Serena to make the comeback, the way Andreescu, played out that match, and the quality of tennis that she produced in the biggest stages was unbelievable at the age that she was. And as I say, it was a terrible time to get the injury. But we've seen Osaka sort of burst on the scene, and Sophia Kenin. There's loads of young players really that you could see dominating women's tennis, but I think they could all perhaps share Grand Slams in the future. But for Andreescu, I think it'll be difficult to come off that sort of layoff back at a Grand Slam and, win it. But I think for Andreescu, it has to be the first priority has to be staying fit, I think. Just getting through matches unscathed, playing some good tennis. I don't think the results will be, the main thing in her mind at the moment. She's still very young. As long as you can make a positive return and, come out of the tournament unscathed, I think she'll be happy. In 2021 for her, it's sort of about rebuilding and, picking up that form that she had pre-injury.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I don't think there's going to be too much pressure on her, like you say. No one's really expecting the most because she's not been playing, and that's just the truth of it. But she does have the skill set, and it wouldn't surprise me if she was a bit of a one who goes under the radar. People are not really expecting her to do much this year, and she goes all the way and wins this tournament, to be honest. I forget if Ben predicted her to win this one or the next one, but I don't know, we both went for Sabalenka, actually. A bit predictable, I guess, because she's playing so well and she's on a crazy run. Have you had any thoughts about your predictions for both the men's and women's tournament this year?
The women is so wide open. I mean,
Yeah.
Bianca Andreescu could turn up. Ashley Barty's barely played any tennis in 2020.
And she's raring to go as well. I saw her in an interview or something the other day. She's saying she can't wait to get back on court. It's in Australia as well. The last time we saw her, I believe, was in the Australian Open. I think she got to the semi-finals or quarterfinals. Semis. So she's going to be there and about. You can't really discount her. Obviously, the world number one.
Yeah, you've got Serena, who's obviously got that bags of experience chasing that record Grand Slam title. Simone Halep's always bang there. Sophia Kenin, defending champion, but didn't obviously play well at the Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
My pick's probably the boring pick, but I think if Naomi Osaka turns up and produces her A game, I think it's very difficult to stop. She looked back to her best at the US in 2020, where she picked up that title. I think Osaka at her ruthless best, serving the way she can, I think she has to be favoured to win the title. But as you say, if Andreescu or Ashley Barty turned up after not playing for a year and won this tournament, it wouldn't be at all surprising, really.
Or even a surprise one, like a Rybakina or someone else, because we really like her as well.
Yeah, she's my outside pick, to be fair. But I think we saw with, Swiatek last year wasn't even ranked inside the top 30 before the French. She won the Grand Slam without dropping a set, did she?
Yeah, that was her first Grand Slam, I believe. Or I think so. Maybe not.
Yeah. But,
I think it was.
There's even players like Ons Jabeur, who's played very well in 2020. There's so many players outside, even the top 20 or 30, that could turn up and win a Grand Slam. I think the more young players that come through and win Grand Slams sort of gives those low-ranked players even more confidence that they could, replicate that themselves. I think another wide-open women's Grand Slam, really.
Yeah, I think with the men's, you'd probably say it's a little bit more easier to predict. And I know, based off your Twitter account and some of the blogs you've written, you're a massive Novak Djokovic fan. Like, he is your man. You can even see him there. Look, he's right behind you, looking over your shoulder. I don't know if you've caught much of our stuff, but I'm very much on the Rafa side of things. However, I could admire all tennis players, especially the big three. What they've done is just incredible. And I have a lot of admiration for all three. But I have a lot of connection to Rafa purely because of all the French Opens. And in the UK, as you know, we have a lot of coverage on ITV4. And I remember growing up watching a lot of that, to be honest. But would you say for you, do you think, are you really going to be laying down the gauntlet, saying this year that Djokovic is going to be winning this title?
I think it's tough. I certainly won't bet against Djokovic, just for his form in Melbourne. I always like to play that's dominated a Grand Slam, like, Rogers dominated Wimbledon over the years, Rafa at the French. Djokovic loves the conditions in Melbourne, and I think
it's Grand Slam, this one.
Yeah, I think the pressure's on Novak. He's chasing that all-time Grand Slam list, and if he's going to do it, I think he has to win Melbourne for the next 2 or 3 years. He's 3 behind Rafa and Roger now. So I don't think you can afford to lose the Australian, especially after what happened at the US. But I do think it'll be very hard for him to win this tournament. I do think he's the favourite going in, as I say, because of those 8 Melbourne titles. But Daniil Medvedev's getting him better and better. He's becoming a nightmare for everybody over 5 sets with his consistency in defence. You've got Dominic Thiem, who just produced some of the best hardcore tennis I've ever seen in 2020. And if he can back that up, he has to go to the, Australian Open as one of the favourites. He obviously lost last year in the final, but I put that down to...
What an epic final that was. It was a... say what you were going to say.
Yeah, Thiem was leading in that one, and I think had he have won a Grand Slam in the past and had a little bit more conviction in the big stages, I think you could have beat Novak. I think he was a better player in the final. But you just seen that his forehand was wayward when he needed to be at the best in that 4th set, and from that point Djokovic ran away with it. But now Thiem's won a Grand Slam and obviously beat Djokovic and Nadal at the ATP finals. He's going to have the confidence going into this, and it wouldn't surprise me if Thiem was lifting this title come February.
I think that's Ben's pick. So Ben's pick is Dominic Thiem to lift this trophy. I've gone for a real obscure one, really, being Daniil Medvedev. Obviously, he's not really done very well historically over the 5 sets. I just think the level I saw from him at obviously the Nitto ATP finals, the last real tennis we saw, I thought he was just unplayable. That final against Thiem, he was just so good. Against, I think he played Djokovic and Nadal, I believe, in that. Beat both of them as well. Didn't lose a match the whole tournament. And if he can replicate that, even for in spells, I think he's just so difficult to play against. And with the conditions in Australia, I feel like he's someone this could be completely false. I think he's able to deal with the circumstances right now in Australia of being in a hotel room and not having as much training as what you would normally would. I think he can deal with that a little bit better than, say, a Dominic Thiem who loves to spend every minute on court.
Yeah, I think Medvedev's improving all the time. As you say, his mentality just seems to be rock solid. But his game, his counter-punching, his defence, his fitness, he's just set out to be a Grand Slam champion, in my opinion, especially in a hard court. And with that first serve that he's got, you can rattle off games in 30, 40 seconds with 4 consecutive aces, and having that in your arsenal is a massive weapon on a hard court. But my outside pick, Stefanos Tsitsipas, and again, he hasn't had the best Grand Slam results in the past, but I think the more Tsitsipas matures over the years, I think he'll get better and better. I mean, we've seen at the Nitto ATP finals in 2019 and 20, that French Open semi-final against Djokovic, that he has the ability to blow anybody off the court for an hour or two, and it's just about him putting it all together for 2 weeks. I think in Grand Slams in the past, in the first week, he's sort of been lapsed in the opening stages of Grand Slams, where he's let these low-ranked players drag him into wars in 4 or 5 hour battles, and he's either been dumped out or took all the energy out of him for the later rounds. So he hasn't really turned up, but I think if he can turn up and get into a rhythm in rounds 1 and 2 and get that serve and forehand going, then I think he's capable of beating anybody in a fast hard court. So he's my outside pick, but I do think the favourites have to be Thiem and Djokovic, really.
I think Tsitsipas has a great chance if his dad's left at home, to be honest. I think that whole relationship seems very toxic, and it doesn't seem to work for me personally. I've seen times when he's not there, the dad, and Tsitsipas seems to be flying. I think, I agree with you. I think if his dad stays at home, he's probably got a better chance. But yeah, as I say, I don't think Djokovic is a clear outright favourite. I mean, he's got a much better record than Rafa over the last few years in the hard court, but we all know what Rafa's like. I mean, we've never seen anybody with a competitive streak and fight that Rafa's got. If Rafa would turn up and replicate that Aussie Open win in 2009, was it? Then it wouldn't at all be surprising. We obviously know Rafa wins this event, he goes to having the most Grand Slams ever. So he's got that added incentive. A lot at stake. I think both of them, really, Novak and Nadal, for a change. There's actually quite a little bit of pressure, underlying pressure, in terms of a lot at stake right now. No Federer as well in the mix. So just leaving it between them two. Obviously, like I said earlier, I'm a massive Rafa fan, but I just don't see him personally doing great in this tournament. Like you say, he's got that fight in him where anything's really possible. I think Djokovic is the favourite for me personally, based off his history here and everything else. But I think the chasing pack of Thiem and Medvedev, specifically them two, is super, super dangerous. Maybe a Zverev as well. If things are firing, his second serve starts to improve, you never know. I wouldn't want to be playing him either, to be honest.
Yeah, it's one of them. I think Djokovic has to be favoured just because you're the next gen, and Dominic Thiem do have those questions. I mean, obviously, can Dominic Thiem repeat that form of 2020? And, Medvedev and Zverev are yet to win Grand Slam. So Djokovic has to be favoured just for that reason, that he loves conditions in Melbourne, and he's got experience of lifting this title 8 times. So if it comes down to deciding sets and semi-finals and finals, then you have to give Djokovic that edge. But yeah, Zverev's another interesting one. I think the only problem with Zverev is that second serve. I've talked about it for years and years and waited for it to improve, and it never seems to. The forehand as well can be very hit or miss for Zverev, and I just don't think he's ready quite yet to beat the top players. But
the thing is with him, though, it's hard to keep saying, when's he going to be ready? He's been on the tour for ages, this guy now. It's kind of to his own detriment, really, because he broke into the scenes at such a young age. People would think he's a lot older than what he is. I think he's only 23, is that right?
Yeah.
And you'd think he's about 27, to be honest, or 28. He's been on tour for so long, it seems. So I think that comes to his own downside in a way, because people are always expecting him, when are you actually going to be winning Grand Slams and stuff? He come close last year, got to a final. It wasn't a vintage final. Some of the tennis looked very shaky at times between them two. But Zverev definitely has the weapons. It's just the consistency for me with him. And like you say, the second serve.
Yeah, when he first came through, I mean, the pressure just piled on him as a teenager. I don't think he particularly dealt well with that.
No, he didn't.
But he was after Djokovic, Federer and Nadal, he was the one that was sort of always going to challenge us for Grand Slams. But over the past 2 or 3 years, I think even Tsitsipas, Medvedev team have sort of improved past him. So perhaps now he is an underdog and not one of the favourites. He might play better with that pressure off. But while he's got such a vulnerable second serve, I can't see him beating a Djokovic team on a hard court over 5 sets. He just gifts games away, and you can't do that against the top players.
Yeah, and just there's 2 players actually I want to speak about now who aren't going to be in the tournament this year. Very, very sad, and that is Federer and Andy Murray.
Yeah.
So these 2 players, obviously, they've been sort of ravaged with their injuries. More so Murray, with the fact that it's not looking great right now. He's outside the top 100. Mm-hmm. He's not that old where you'd expect him still to be competing with these big guys. You see how old Federer is right now, and he's still doing it. Or Djokovic, Nadal as well. What can we expect from Andy Murray? There's been some harsh things said about him, saying, they're writing him off. I think Mats Wilander saying he's not going to ever really amount to much more anymore. Other people I've seen, someone on YouTube, Gil, saying that he actually fancies him to reach the top 10 this year, which is crazy for me. What's your sort of stance on Andy Murray?
I could never see him challenging for a Grand Slam title again or getting back in the top 10 personally. I just think he's been out too long now, and I think we've seen when he's come back that he can play pretty good, solid tennis for 1 or 2 matches, but then the fatigue starts to set in, the pain seems to come back. And when you've got the level of tennis, like we've talked about, the Medvedevs, the teams, the Djokovic's who are absolutely at peak fitness and in the peak form, even Rafa as well, just playing some incredible tennis over 4 or 5 hours. I can't see Murray ever mixing it at that level again. I just think, the surgery that he had was obviously very serious, and at 33-year-old now, I can't see him ever getting back to the level that he was, which is a massive shame. He was an unbelievable flag bearer for British tennis, and he probably inspired loads of British kids and loads of kids in Britain to pick up a tennis racket. What he's done for the sport has been fantastic, and the way he's sort of gone out with that hip injury is awful to see. But I personally can't see him ever challenging for a Grand Slam or reaching the top 10 again, just because of the level that's at the top of the moment.
So what would your advice be to Andy Murray then? Would you recommend him continue to keep playing, or do you think it's sort of ruining his legacy now, continuing to play outside the top 100, not really amounting to many victories, doing well in even some of the ATP 250 events? So what would you suggest for him?
I think he said at the start that if he didn't think he could win titles, he wouldn't be competing anymore. But I do wonder whether that's starting to creep into his mind, that even he's starting to doubt himself now. I think it's largely down to him. I don't think Murray's a person that would just exist on the tour sort of thing. I don't think he would keep if he was just going to go in the first rounds. He's a champion. He's been world number 1. He doesn't really need tennis anymore if he's not going to reach the top. I would just love to see Murray play at Wimbledon, even if he just had one last match on the centre court in round 1 or something and got a full house, which looks unlikely this year, obviously. But just to see Murray back at Wimbledon for the last time, get that sort of farewell would be nice. But it's obviously up to Andy. If he still thinks he can compete and he has those ambitions to reach the top 10, then albeit go for it. But I think if it gets to a point where Andy doesn't believe in himself anymore, I do think he'll bow out the sport pretty quick.
Well, he's been a bit unfortunate as well. Obviously, he's contracted COVID recently, so hopefully he recovers from that well. And he was trying to play in the Australian Open, so it's a bit unfortunate with how everything sort of panned out for him. But like you say, I think it is very difficult now to see him ever really reach the top of the game again. So we'll see what happens with him. But someone who I think is still in the conversation is my man Roger.
Yeah.
For me, how old is he now?
39.
39. Yeah, so that's just unbelievable, really. 39 years old, and people still talking with the fact that it wouldn't be that surprising if he went and won another Wimbledon.
Not at all. I mean, was it 2018 when he had the serious knee surgery and had a year off and then came back and won the Australian Open? So if he's doing that at 36, 37, which he was at the time, you can't write him off, especially at Wimbledon. I mean, he pushed Djokovic to the very edge.
Exactly. The last Wimbledon we saw, he was there. It was so close. Them 2 match points.
That 2019 final, he was 37, and he pushed Djokovic obviously the absolute limits, having those 2 championship points. you can just never write Roger off. Even we saw this event last year when he, came back from, was it 6 match points down, and even played very well against Djokovic in the opening set of that quarterfinal. He did run out of steam and lose the second and third convincingly, but he pushed Djokovic in the opening set, and I think he led 5-2 at one point. So you can never write Roger off, especially at Wimbledon with the crowd behind him and all the history he's got there. He'll probably go on that Wimbledon event as still one of the favourites, I imagine.
Yeah, no, it'd be brilliant as well. I'd love to see him compete really at the highest level again. I'm hoping he can, but it's still a bit scary because he's getting on now, and not seen him back on court for a while. It's unfortunate he's pulled out the Australian Open. Obviously, he's not in the ATP Cup as well, which is happening before. But like you say, I do generally believe 2021 he's still gonna show us something special, I hope.
Yeah, you can never write him off, and I mean, I can't really picture tennis without Roger Federer. I mean, as long as I'm only 23, so as long as I've watched it, he's always been in finals. So even like last year, not seeing him in the quarterfinals and semi-finals, it's very strange. So to see Roger retire will be crazy, really. And the tennis, I don't think will ever be the same without him. But you do wonder how long he'll go on. Now he's got obviously the 2 sets of twins. Does he want to keep travelling? And if he does require therapy, does he want to risk not being able to walk properly like Andy Murray was? And next year at 40-year-old, you do wonder whether if we can have fans at Wimbledon next year that he will bow out on centre court. But it's obviously up to Roger. He may play at least 40 or 50 and probably still win matches. But yeah, it's obviously up to him.
Yeah, brilliant, Dan. Appreciate that. Before we let you go, the last thing we wanted to speak about was actually just briefly about the ATP Cup. No GB in it. Is there a nation who you think strongest, and who are you going to be cheering on?
Serbia, just because I'm a massive Djokovic fan. I think they probably have to be the favourites just because you can usually bank on Djokovic on a hard court.
And last year as well, they won it. And Djokovic was incredible last year. Though.
So, yeah, I think Serbia's probably got the strongest team with having Djokovic on paper and being the defending champions. But yeah, I think the ATP Cup's a great event and just looking forward to watching, really.
Yeah, exactly. Shame GB can't be there, but hopefully next year, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully next year with Andy Murray leading the line. But it could be all change. Obviously, Dan Evans had a very good last year. Cam Norrie as well. So we're going to need somebody to sort of take over Andy Murray and fly the flag for British tennis. I
think we need a Jack Draper, man. Jack Draper just have a phenomenal year, and 2022 he's going to be there flying the flag for Britain.
Hopefully, important we don't put too much pressure on him too early.
Yeah, I'm doing exactly what I've said. Don't do, but that's just what I feel like we do that as a nation. It's a bit of a problem, especially the media. They're some of the worst for doing it, but it is what it is. I just really believe in the guy, and I'm sure he can reach the heights.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think him and Amiru Kanu, both teenagers, I think both can have fantastic futures in the game and hopefully, do very well at Wimbledon and attract a whole new audience to the sport in Britain especially. Yeah,
so thanks for that, Dan. I'll let you get on with your day. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for everyone watching. If you've not already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and go subscribe to Dan's channel as well. Go look at his... is it WordPress? You have it on? You have a lot of your blogs on there?
Yeah. I've got my YouTube channel. That's just my name, Dan Rodenby. And I always leave me links in the description to my Twitter and blog on there. So if you do want to check anything out, do so. But yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. Hope everyone enjoys the tournament. I think in lockdown, it'll probably be, even better having 2 weeks of Grand Slam tennis to get stuck into. So do follow the podcast and also my content as well throughout the tournament. Hope everyone takes care and stays safe.
Yeah, we'll stick your links in the bottom of our description as well, so anyone can check it out. But thanks again, mate, and hopefully we'll have a brilliant Australian Open and ATP Cup before.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, mate.
Cheers. See ya.